Lance's Jeep stopped in the front of his hotel. It had been snowing the entire way from Denver, but it was starting to come down harder now. It was the mid-afternoon, just after 3, and Lance went through the drudgery of getting checked in. Lance had his names. There was, first and foremost, the survivor, a fireman named Asher Howard. He had suffered some terrible burns, or so the pictures showed, but the saviors were the juicy part of the story. Sheriff Jack Culpepper, who Mr. Howard had stumped for on the campaign trail. The sheriff barely won against a fairly popular and well-backed man, Gene Clint, a former sheriff in Cherokee County. Culpepper had won by less than 500 votes. There was even a recount, but a month later things had settled down. The others were his deputy, Barbara O'Connor, and park ranger Ian Grove, and a young civilian, Jacob Mondre, whose uncle owned Rocky Mountain Expeditions, a few other similar types of companies across the country. So, you head out of your hotel, wondering who to find first.
So my first stop, of course, is going to be to head off to the sheriff's office. I guess I'm here to interview all of the main players, but Sheriff Culpepper is who I'm most interested in. The story he has to tell, how his, quote-unquote heroic acts shaped the campaign, those kinds of things. So I head to the sheriff's office.
Okay. So you hop in your Jeep and kind of pull out onto the empty roads where there's really nobody out there right now. And you kind of look on your GPS, or you don't have a GPS in 1994. You look at your map and get your bearings and head over to where you believe the sheriff's office is. And after a few minutes, you pull up in front of the sheriff's office. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to head inside the sheriff's office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on, your token's not pulling over for some reason. There we go. Alright. So you duck inside out of the snow, and you see a later middle-aged lady with dark black hair, which is clearly dyed, pulled up in curlers. And she's at the receptionist's desk, and the placard says Marge McElroy. And she looks up and she smiles and she's like, "Wow, aren't you a pretty one? What can I do for you today?"
Well, I look at her and I smile back, and I look down at her placard. I look back up at her and I say, "Well, hi, Marge. I'm actually here looking for the sheriff. Do you happen to know where he is today?"
She frowns and she's, the sheriff had a long night last night. Some lunatic tried to attack him and then, well, went ahead and beat his own head in, I guess." And she just kind of gives this weird shrug. And she says, "So he was at the mental hospital, or he's supposed to be going there. And the sheriff was visiting with him, and I don't know if he's coming back today, I have to say. He's pretty tired after all that excitement."
So, how long ago did he leave? How long has he been out of the office?
"Oh, he's been out of the office most of the day. He came back in the morning and met with his friends, and then they left."
Okay. And we don't expect him back anytime soon.
She shakes her head and she's like, "I can never say with the sheriff. He could be out solving all the crimes in Garfield County today." And she kind of gives this smile, and her teeth are coffee stained and very gross.
I smile back at her, give her a little grin, and I say, "Well, how about that trusted sidekick he's got? Miss Barbara O'Connor, I believe is her name. I read a little bit about her. I'd like to speak to her as well."
And she kind of looks at you sidelong and she's like, "Oh, Barb." She's like, "Well, she's with him. She basically doesn't leave his side these days. I think she might have a crush on the old man." And she kind of gives a giggle. And she's like, "So, may I ask who you are and what you're looking for? The two of Garfield finest."
Well, yes, ma'am, of course. That's exactly why I'm here, is because they are two of Garfield's finest, and I'm actually a freelance news reporter, and I'm doing a piece about them, about the fire, about the election, and these two folks seem to be kind of local heroes, and I just wanted to speak to them.
Marge like kind of gets like a frown, and she's like, "Oh, the sheriff is not going to like that. He doesn't much like reporters, I have to tell you, friend. He's a kind of a private man. He doesn't consider himself a hero. I think he was mostly embarrassed when all the information came out during the campaign, but lucky for him, it did, and he's back in this office now."
Okay, well, I would still like the opportunity to talk to them when I can. So if I can leave you my hotel number, I'd appreciate a phone call when they returned, so I can with them.
She nods. She's like, "Yeah, I can take your number," and you pass your card with, I'm assuming, the number written on the
Yeah.
back, and she's like, "Let me give you my number," and she like tears off this little piece of paper and writes down her number, and she slides it back towards you, and she's like, "That's my home number. You can feel free to call me at any time."
Well, I just might do that, Marge. Thank you. You've been a real pleasure.
And she smiles and she takes a drink of this ginormous mug of coffee.
Okay. So they're not here at the sheriff's office. I also know that I want to speak to Jacob and Ian. So my next stop will be to go to Jacob's place of employment as well, and see if he's available.
Okay, they have a small, basically, you would call it a storefront, where they rent out gear mostly for the treks. So that's easily findable. You head over towards the Rocky Mountain Expedition office, and let me change the music real quick. So you head over
Okay.
there, and you just see this normal kind of mom and pop building. You can see it's the green one there behind you. And you pull up in front of it, and you see that the sign is turned to the closed.
Okay. I park my car, lock it, walk up to the front entrance, start looking through the windows, see if I can see anyone in the back.
So you're kind of peeking through. You don't see anything. You see like all these mannequins in there, like, displaying the clothes and the coats and whatnot. And as you're kind of peeking through, a woman like passes you and kind of gives you a dirty look as she keeps walking by. There doesn't appear to be
Passes me on the
anybody
sidewalk.
inside. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I walk around the back of the building, see if maybe anyone's back there locking up, anything like that.
No, you don't see anything back there. You see a dumpster that's shared by several of the buildings in a parking lot that are connected to each other. And there's not really anything back there as far as you can tell. No cars. All the cars are gone.
Okay. So strike two at locations. Of course, my next stop would be to head over to Ian's place of employment to see if I can speak to anyone there.
So you know that he's employed with the park ranger service, but you really don't know I mean, they do have a headquarters in the county, and it is in town, so you could go there, but you don't know where he specifically might be.
I mean, any chamber of commerce or anything like that's gonna, have that information. So, I mean, I would go that route. All that stuff's kind of usually centrally located and or in the phone book kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
that's fine. You can find the park, the national, I don't know what you would
yeah,
call it, the park rangers headquarters would just call it.
yeah.
So you do walk in there, and it is open. It's very very small, and it's very sterile looking. Not much to it. And there is another secretary. This one looking rather more normal. It's a woman with also black hair. She looks like, and she's in probably her mid-30s with glasses on, and she just looks like she's doing paperwork as you walk in. She kind of looks up idly.
Okay. I walk up to her. I look down to see if there's a nameplate or a name tag or anything like that.
There is not. She doesn't have a name tag or nameplate. She kind of, as you approach, she's like, "How can I help you?"
Yes, hi. My name is Lance Henderson. I'm a journalist in town, and I'm actually going to be covering a story about some locals here. One of them happens to be a gentleman by the name of Ian Grove, and I understand he's an employee here. I was wondering if I could contact him somehow, if he was available today, or if you had contact information for him. That'd be great.
She's like, "Well, I'm not sure if he's available. He's probably out at the watchtower." She's like, "We can feel free to call him and see if he's there." And she kind of takes one of these rotary dial phones and kind of like hefts it up on the counter in between you. And she's like, "I'll give you his number."
Oh, wonderful. That would be great.
And so she gives you the number, and you can dial it now, if you wish.
And I call the watchtower.
Okay. Would Here's a question for Rivers, I guess. Would you have an answering machine? Okay. Let's. Yeah. So.
He did say it was an old like radio, like an old like 40s radio.
What it would be is like in those or at least those fire towers, there would be a phone line, but it would have been tethered up the side of the mountain. And basically, what happens is it's like a really old style form of communications, probably a direct line to all the fire towers, which is really weird in today's world. So, when you dial it, there will be an answer machine just because of whatever, but it's more like this is Ian Grove. At Watchtower, blah 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 blah. I don't know the exact number because we've never discussed it.
Mm-hmm.
Please leave a message after the tone or forward it to my home address if it's an emergency.
Okay, that's what you get.
Okay, so I go ahead and I leave a message basically explaining the same kind of thing that I was wanting to do, discuss things with him, with the others, about why I'm here and what my purpose here is. And then I hang up.
Okay.
And I go ahead and I ask the secretary, is it normal for someone in a watchtower or someone who's supposed to be in a watchtower to not be there? Or is it normal to have an empty watchtower? I mean, isn't the purpose of a watchtower to be watching?
Well, she kind of smiles and she's like, "In case you haven't noticed, fire danger's pretty low today."
Yeah, okay.
But she's like, "Usually, I mean, he works quite a bit. I mean, I don't know. This could be his day off." Or she's like, "Hold on, let me look." And she kind of like looks through the books and she's like, "Yeah, he called in and asked to have today off, and so, yeah, I don't know where he would be."
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
If you're looking for something to play with here, his home address, if
Yep.
if the phone number would have been there, it would have been Sydney's phone line. So,
Yeah, well, she's not going to give out personal information to Lance unless
yes.
he schmoozes her, right?
Smoozer, I want you to meet my Smash.
which is exactly what I was going to do next.
Dude, Smoozer, get my phone information and meet my Smash piece. Chrome bumper sucker.
I was actually considering, because since I have the best rapport so far with Marge, getting and Barb's home addresses and going by there.
God, it'd be so easy for a slasher to kill people in this town. Holy shit. You know, it'd be quiet now.
So what are you gonna do?
You know what? I think I let the secretary know to take a look at this watchtower, if that's possible. If you could, give me the directions to that, maybe I could drive out there, take a look, see what it's all about. It could be part of my story.
She kind of like grimaces at that, and she's like, "Oh, I would wait at least until the morning. It's snowing pretty bad out there, and probably is only going to get worse. I don't think that would be a good drive for anyone without the necessary chains and whatnot to get up there. And plus, I wouldn't want you to go out there. If he's not answering, he's not there."
So on the aside here, what time of day is it?
It's like 4 p.m.
4 p.m. Okay.
So you're talking about darkness within at least an hour.
Within
in January.
an hour, yeah. Okay. Well, I've made all my contacts. I've struck out on all of them. The only thing left for me to do is, I guess, wait till morning. I'll go to the local watering hole, whichever that is, near my hotel, have a drink, then head back to my hotel and wait for the AM to see if I get any return calls.
Okay. 1 second. Whoops. Hold on. Damn it. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Oh, shit.
Sure.
Yeah. I definitely can't upload this until.
I recognize this bar.
So you head into the local bar. This is not the same bar they were in, by the way, but
Damn it.
yeah, no, because that bar is in Rifle. But so you head into the local bar and you sit down, and it's relatively empty, honestly. It's a Wednesday, and you only see one other person at the bar, and he's wearing a hoodie and a big coat on top of the hoodie, and the hoodie is like pulled up over his head and kind of cinched somewhat tight. And why don't you go ahead and roll like something that would be a notice, essentially. So it'd be, let's see, what do we think it would be? Something like wits and let's see.
Investigation, maybe, or like, not really, but no.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be fine. Wits investigation would be fine.
Wits investigation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's going to give me 4 dice. So I just do...
So you can either just roll you should have a macro on your token. You can click that fighting macro and use that. That would work.
Are these D10s or?
Say that again.
These D10s?
Yeah, they're all D10s. Yeah. So you click.
Look for D10.
Yeah, you can just roll it too if you just want to. Just. Yep. So go ahead and roll 2d10. So your dice exploded essentially, or not exploded, but again.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay, so that's 4 6. Really good. So you recognize the guy instantly from all the images and pictures that you went through, and it's very clear that it is another person that is a part of your investigation, and it is the firefighter that was injured in the blaze, and he's kind of sitting at the end of the bar with gloves on. You can barely probably the bartender knows who he is or can tell his disfigurement just from being that close to him, but he's clearly hiding his face as he's drinking.
I would have known his name through my research.
Yep, his name is Asher
for this
Howard.
one. Asher Howard. So I go sit next to. I wave the bartender over. Let them know that I'll have just and whatever this gentleman here is having, I'll get one for him as well.
So he nods and just goes over the tap and pours a Budweiser and brings one over to you, and then sits one in front of Asher, and he kind of looks up and then down kind of nervously, and just you hear the bartender say basically he bought your drink, and he kind of like shifts his head towards you and looks at you and turns back forward and nods. Doesn't seem too
So
social.
I take a sip of my sip of my drink, kind of just savor it a little bit. Let the burn hit the back of my throat. Set my glass down, kind of push it away. And then I just look over to him and ask him, "Aren't you..."
I think you're cutting out.
I cut out it.
You said, "Aren't you?"
I think he was actually doing that on purpose.
Oh,
It sounded
okay.
like purpose.
Oh, okay. Were you trying to be?
Asked him his name. I said, "Aren't you Asher Howard?"
Ah, okay. Never mind.
He kind of looks in your direction, and he looks back down, and he nods, and he says, "I don't really want any trouble, sir. Just having a couple drinks before I go home."
Day was a bust too. Having a couple drinks before I go home. I take another sip of my whiskey.
He bought you a Budweiser.
What's that?
You said you were having what he was having, right?
No, I bought him whatever he was having.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a 2-finger pour of whiskey, and I got
Okay.
him whatever he was having.
Okay.
Let's be clear on something. Whiskey before beer. Anything else makes you queer.
So
No, I'm kidding.
I take another drink off my whiskey, and I say, I get it. Rough days for everyone here. He said, I read a little about you though, and I'm very interested about what happened up on that mountain 6 months ago.
And
And I just kind of gauge his interest when I let him know that.
he kind of like, as he's holding the pint in front of him, you see his fingers kind of move awkwardly, stiffly and nervously, and he kind of looks over at you, and he's like, well, you see what happened. And he just kind of juts his face a little forward. It's hard to kind of tell his emotions because his face is so mangled, honestly. Like this picture here is he's doing pretty good if that's his picture, right? He looks a lot worse than that, really.
Yeah.
And he
Okay.
doesn't have eyebrows, barely has lips, and he kind of says, "I don't know what you would want to know, sir, but everything's been covered in the papers."
I waved the bartender over to bring Asher here another drink.
And as he sits the beer, so he's got 2 full beers and then this half beer that he's been drinking, and he's like, and he kind of like shakes his head and he says, "Are you trying to get me drunk?"
Well, I just want to make it a little more comfortable for you to feel at ease to talk to me. I know you don't like talking about what happened, and you've made that obvious. But if you wouldn't mind, I would love to ask you some questions.
And he kind of rolls his eyes and he's like, "I've talked to reporters before. If you really want to talk, I don't want to do it here. You have to come back to my house."
Well, how far away is that?
He just shakes his head. Just about 5 blocks away. We could walk there if you want.
You know what? Considering how my day went, a complete bust. I didn't get to speak to any of the people I showed up in town to interview. I'm going to take this offer. This is the silver lining to my day. Thank you, Mr. Asher. I'll definitely.
Yeah, he takes a drink and he like shakes his head again. He's like, "This isn't an invitation for anything sexual." And he kind of like.
Don't worry, sir. You have nothing to worry about there. I just want to talk.
And he nods, and then he takes the 3 beers and in fairly quick succession drinks them, and puts like probably a $10 bill on the counter, and the guy like slides it back to him, and Asher just like shakes his head and stands up and leaves.
I finish off my slug of whiskey, and then I stand up, look around the room, and follow him out, zipping my coat up and bringing my collar up around my neck.
Yep, so you guys bundle up and head back into the snow, and you walk down the street some, probably about 5 blocks. Takes you, a little less than 10 minutes to walk it, probably. And you're going pretty quick, and he doesn't really say anything the entire way. And finally you get to this small little house, and he kind of turns and walks up the front drive, not even drive, just a little opening there to his small little house, and he waves you forward. And he's like, "This is it, not much, but it's warm inside."
Well, I will follow your lead, sir.
So as you're heading inside, you kind of notice over your shoulder that this bus just pulls up down the street, and the only reason you notice is just how many people are getting out. It's kind of weird. There's probably the whole thing is like packed plus some, and they just kind of file out, and you kind of don't think about it much more than that. But he kind of looks too, and he kind of shakes his head, and he's like, "Weird day to have a bunch of visitors." And he unlocks the door and pushes it open, flips on a light, and walks inside.
So, I mean, what kind of a bus? It wasn't a city bus then, like a transit bus? It was a tour bus?
It looked like a big city bus. It looked fairly old, though. Let me see if I have a picture of it. I might.
So I guess I don't know what he means by visitors then.
He's just it looks similar to this. He's just like visitors to town on the bus. It's not like
Okay.
looks something like that, right? It's definitely doesn't say like it doesn't
Transportation.
say yeah, it's not like it's not I guess it's not like the Glenwood Springs bus. It's definitely not that.
Okay. Okay.
It
Okay.
looks like maybe like an older VW type of bus
Okay.
almost.
But it was packed with people.
Yep, packed with people. They just get out and just kind of go on their way. None of them come near you or anything.
Okay.
So he heads inside and opens the door, like kind of pushes it open for you to follow him in.
Okay. Yeah. I follow him in. Stomp my feet off on the mat. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
wait for him to.
the first thing you notice is it is really warm in there. You pass the thermostat and it's set for 85, and the difference in temperature from the outside into the inside is quite sudden. And you instantly, it feels good at first, and then you're in there just for a couple minutes, and with your heavy clothing on, you feel very warm and start sweating. He pretty much just sits down in this kind of older style recliner, and there's a couch nearby, and everything else. It looks pretty dated house, pretty dated belongings. He's got like a tube TV. It's fairly a big one, actually. Probably the nicest thing in the house. It's I would say it's probably 40 inches, and of course for 94, that's quite a big TV.
Yeah.
And then of course the back of it is as big as it is tall because it's got all the tubes and stuff. And he sits down and kind of turns on the TV, and he's like, "I don't watch much news," and he just kind of flips it to the Denver Nuggets are playing the Miami Heat, and he just kind of leaves that on, and he's like, "So, what questions do you want to ask? If it's about the sheriff, well, I have a lot to say about him."
Well, okay, Mr. Asher. I take his lead and I take a seat across from him if I can, if there's some seating there,
Yeah.
and I take my heavy coat off, set it on the arm of my seat because it's so warm in there. And I ask him, "Is it okay if I, record this conversation? I just have a simple, handheld tape recorder here. Is it okay if I go ahead and do that?"
He nods.
Okay, so I turn the tape recorder on. I ask him, for the recorder, if he could tell me his name, that kind of thing, and who he was employed by at the time of the fire.
Yeah, he's like, "My name is Asher Jackson Howard. I was employed by the Cheyenne Hot Shots. We were a firefighting fire group out of Wyoming."
Okay, thank you, Mr. Howard. Now, you said you had a lot to say about the sheriff. I'm really curious about that. I'm glad you offered that up. Can you just expand on that? Let me know what it is you have to say about the sheriff.
Of course, he's a hero. If it wasn't
Sheriff's
for
a
him,
hero.
if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be alive today. He's
Okay,
like
now.
the father I don't have anymore.
Now, what exactly made the sheriff a hero to you?
He drugged me out of the fire. He came to my rescue, leading the others. The others did well too, but the sheriff, he was the ringleader of them.
The sheriff pulled you out of the fire.
Yes.
That sounds wonderful. I heard there were some contradicting stories to that, but you're telling me that it was the sheriff that pulled you out of the fire.
Oh, it was the sheriff. I think the park ranger helped him too, but the sheriff mostly.
Okay, well that's great. I can see why he won re-election. That's pretty heroic.
He should have won a lot more than he did. It was ridiculous.
Can't believe some of these people that voted for that asshole.
The other guy, huh?
Gene Clint. Gene Clit is what I call him.
Okay, well, understandable. So the sheriff pulled you out of the fire. Now, I read that you also ran back into the fire after you were pulled out. What happened there?
My friend Tom, he got separated from us. And, well...
And he kind of looks away and, looks down and he's like,
he didn't make it.
And I would remember Tom's name from my research as well. What's his name?
Tom Mason, I think is his name.
Okay. So I bring that up. I let him know. So you're speaking about Tom Mason, then, correct?
Yes, Tom Mason. We worked together for 6 years.
Okay. And did he just get trapped in the fire?
He fell down in a pit off the side of the trail, and then couldn't really see anything. The smoke was so thick.
That sounds horrible. I'm sorry about the loss of your friend. I'm glad you did make it out, thanks to the sheriff.
That's the only reason I'm here is the sheriff.
Okay. Do you know anything about any of the other folks that were on the mountain that day? I understand the sheriff's deputy was there as well.
Barbara,
and there were 2 others there. Yeah.
Barbara, the park ranger Ian, and the boy Jacob. Yes, they were all there.
Okay.
Barb, she was burnt a little bit. Thankfully, I think she's fine. And the other 2 survived without any injuries that I know of. He's like, I tell you what though, if you really want to talk to the sheriff, he is the person to talk to. He should be the mayor of this town.
Well, I did try contacting the sheriff today, and he wasn't at the station. And Marge there, lovely lady,
lives.
She didn't know.
I know
Sorry?
where he lives. I can take you out to his cabin. He's probably fishing. I fished with him there before. He's
would be
very nice man.
That would be great. That would be extremely helpful. Want to plan on doing that first thing in the morning?
Sure. That's probably where he'll be. If he's out, he could be out, doing his sheriffly duties, busting bad guys. He's a great sheriff and a great man.
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting him, and I'm very glad that I met you.
And he nods and he's like, well, see yourself out then.
Yes, sir. So I turn the tape recorder off. I get up, put my coat back on, kind of take a look around the room one more time, look at Mr. Howard here, shake his hand, and thank him for the information and for the assistance in the morning.
Oh, he does not. You reach out to shake his hand, and he kind of puts his hand on top of your hand and kind of moves it around. Definitely doesn't shake it, right? But it doesn't look like he doesn't just want to shake it, like he's not being a dick, right? There's something else going on. And you notice that since he turns over and you see that he pulls this blanket off this space heater, and he kind of tosses the blanket to the side and cranks it up as you're kind of leaving. And so he's making it even warmer in the house for some reason. And he doesn't really say anything. He just nods. He's like, just come back here in the morning and we'll drive on out there. You'll drive. Is that okay?
That's more than okay. I appreciate all the help you're giving me. Okay, so I put my coat on, walk out the door, kind of look around.
Last thing you see is you
start.
Yep. Last thing you see is you close the door as him pull a blanket over himself, and you close the door and kind of walk outside, and you are now immediately freezing your balls off.
Yeah. I immediately put my coat back on.
Even with the coat, you're just like freezing because
Then
of
I
how
start.
warm it was inside.
Okay. Oh yeah, absolutely. And then I start heading back the direction that we came from, so I can head back to my hotel.
Yep. So are you good for the rest of the night? Just kinda
Yeah, I will wait
minimal.
for morning to meet Mr. Asher, and we'll head to the sheriff's place.
Okay. So in your hotel room, you fall asleep. It's not that big a deal. And one second. And so you're sleeping, and then in the middle of the night, you hear a boom, 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 boom on the door. Boom, 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 boom.
I kind of try and get my bearings about myself, rub my eyes. I sit up on the edge of the bed, and I yell. There!
You cut out. What did you yell?
I yell, "Who's there?"
And there's just a boom, 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 boom. Nobody responds.
My 9mm that I had in my concealed 9mm that I had in my, wherever it was, my jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Who's there?
Just continue pounding on the door. And you hear some other, like, ambient noises outside, like people being like, what the fuck? That kind of thing.
So, holding my weapon, I walk to the far corner, away from the door, but to the window, and I kind of curtain, blind, whatever it is there, and kind of peek out through the corner of that to see who's out there.
So, not what you kind of expect. You see this woman outside. She's probably a little older than you, maybe early 30s, and looks professionally dressed with the satchel over her, over her shoulder. No real heavy coat on, and it is snowing hard now. You notice that your Jeep you kind of see your Jeep in the parking lot behind her, and it's got, 2 feet of snow on top of it. And she's just got snow all in her hair, and she's wearing like what would be akin to a pencil skirt at the time, whatever would be the same stylish type of thing. And she just starts banging on the door again, 3 times in rhythm. Boom, boom, boom.
So, after looking at her, I kind of conceal with my right hand the gun slightly behind my back, turn my left shoulder towards the door, and crack it and open it.
She just pounds on it, and it moves a little bit, but she's not knocking it forward or anything.
Who? What are you doing?
And she kind of hears you and kind of like looks through the crack, and she's like, do you have any Mountain Dew?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Any what?
Mountain Dew.
All right, lady, you need to go find your friends and warm up a little bit and sober up. And I go to shut the door.
You shut the door without any problem, and she just keeps banging on it. And keeps banging on it. And keeps banging on it.
Listen, I yell at her, I'm going to call the police if you don't stop banging on my door.
And so, as you're saying that, not even a minute later, she keeps banging, and then probably the hotel manager or something, or an employee comes out, and they're like, what are you doing? Stop it. And she just keeps banging, and finally there's like some sort of commotion, and if you're looking out the window, which I assume you are, you see
I hear the commotion, I go look out the window again.
Yes, you see like the guy kind of pulling her away, and her just like flailing, and he's easily dragging her away, and then there's a couple other people helping him kind of move her away from your door. And someone asks, "Are you okay in there? Who is this person?"
I'm fine, thank you. She's drunk. Good night.
And they're like, "Do you know who she is?"
I have no clue. Good night.
And you kind of watch and you see, not too much longer, a patrol car slowly drive in your direction and stop, and they seem to kind of, some officer gets out and he talks to her, and he seems very confused, and she just walks off down the street, and they seem to let her go.
Crazy. I kind of shake it off, shake my head in disbelief. Kind of think to myself, what kind of fucking town is this? And I go back to bed, wait for morning to meet up with Asher.
Okay. You wake up in the morning and there's no more disturbances to your sleep, although you had a hard time getting back to sleep after that oddity. And so when you get up in the morning, the roads are awful. They are almost impassable. Thankfully, you have a Jeep and you're able to get over there slowly to his house, even though it's only a couple miles away at best. And he's basically sitting on his front stoop with the he shoveled it off, and he's like huddled under this big jacket and hoodie. Looks like he's dressed essentially the exact same as he was the night before. When you pull up,
Okay.
he stands up and kind of walks towards your Jeep.
Okay. I go ahead and welcome into the Jeep and say good morning. Should we stop and get anything? Do you need breakfast? Do you need coffee? Is there anything we should do before we head out?
He just says, "I've had everything I need. I'll take you out to the sheriff's house. Hopefully we can catch him. We don't want to be too late."
Okay, I'm all up for that. Thank you, Mr. Asher. Mr. Howard.
And he
Go.
nods.
I'll drive.
All right, so you head out there, and
He's like, "This might be a little difficult drive with the weather. He lives outside of town."
but
Okay.
about an hour later, you go about 10 miles, and you come to this cabin on this frozen large pond, basically. And it's a pretty nice cabin.
And he's like, "This is the sheriff's house. It's a beaut, isn't it?"
Well, it's absolutely beautiful. Very peaceful out here. I can see why you all live out here. It's a beautiful country.
And he's like,
"Well, I'm not from here, honestly. I've only lived here 6 months, but I agree with you. It's intoxicating here, and the sheriff is just great."
So, the house, slogging through the snow up to the front door, and I go ahead and,
"You're cutting out again, David."
I just said I walk up to the front door there,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of, making my way through the snow. Once we get to the front door, I kind of ring the doorbell and then give a little knock.
Yep. So you knock and ring the doorbell, and nobody comes to the door. And Asher kind of frowns.
He's like, "That's too bad. I thought he would be here for sure. Let's see if he's doing any ice fishing in the back."
Okay, so go ahead and follow him around to the back, looking through the windows on my way as well.
You see, it looks like a cozy place. You don't see anyone in there for sure. You walk around the back, and you look at the pond, and there's nobody on it, but there is a ice hut out there. And he's like,
"Well, let's go see if he's in there."
Okay.
And he starts out over the ice, just kind of walking slowly. And he's like, "Mind your step, it's slick."
So are you sure this is safe, Mr. Howard?
Oh, he rolls his eyes. He's like,
This is Colorado in January. It's frozen. Don't worry. The ice house would have fallen through before we would.
I guess that's true. So I follow in his footsteps.
so
Carefully.
yeah, and there's snow on the ice too, so you're really not in danger of slipping. And the snow is literally up to your knees anyhow. And so you slowly get out there, and he's like, "Sheriff, are you there?" And you hear something in the like a response, like "yeah," from inside. He's like, "Oh, okay." And so he reaches out and opens the door, and you kind of see this man standing sitting in the ice, what do you call it, the ice house, and he, hold on 1 second, sorry. What the hell? Oops. Sorry.
Right?
And so there's a guy in there, and he's got a hat on, and he is actually wearing some sort of what it appears to be a hospital gown. And he kind of turns, and Asher is like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And the guy stands up, and he's like, "Jerry wants to read." And as he stands up and turns to face you, in his right hand hangs this, looks like some sort of axe. And
The fuck?
he like hefts it and swings towards you. So what we're going to do is we'll roll initiative here. Your action, keep in mind, would be to draw your gun since you have a gun on you. And you guys are both standing kind of in the entryway of this small ice hut.
The doorway there?
Yeah, the doorway. So keep that in mind too. So go ahead and roll initiative. You'll roll a d10. You'll add your initiative score to it.
And how do you roll initiative again?
So if you click on your token, there should be a macro. That's the easiest
really?
way. Yeah. If you click on your token, do you see something hover above, like at the top left of the screen? If not, just roll d10, but then we can figure that out later. But
it's D10, then add.
mm-hmm. So like if I'm doing it for Jerry, for instance, I just click initiative, and well, I don't know what's the initiative. Let me just. Yeah, you roll a d10, you add whatever your initiative. It's basically a combo of two other things. I don't remember. It's
My
I
initiative
have
is
to
6.
Okay, so roll d10 and you add 6 to that.
Oh shit.
Me and fucking Swamp are losing our goddamn minds.
Like, oh,
So
I got-
15.
Initiative. Okay. So you have. Oh, so you got a 19. Or you, what was your initiative? What is your initiative thing? What's your
His
initiative
base
modifier?
is his base is 6.
Okay.
My base is 6, so
Okay,
I
so
have
you got
15.
you got 15, and he got a 9. Asher basically just like jumps back, and he's like, "Oh no, what is this?" And he kind of falls back in the snow, helpless.
I pull my weapon.
Okay, that's your action. Do you want to move?
I pull my weapon and I'll move, into the, frame of the doorway.
Okay. So you kind of block the doorway, which basically puts you right in front of him. So he is going to swing his axe at you. He like hefts it up and he's like, Jerry wants to read. And as he says read, the axe comes down at your head. Let's see. Alright, looks like...
Hopefully this skull doesn't have 3 weaponry dice, because that would be really bad for you. Like, really bad.
Okay, what's your, so... What is your, defense?
What's your armor?
It should be your lowest of, wits and reflexes. Or dexterity.
So
Dexterity, I'm
it'll
sorry.
It'll
What
be
is it?
3 then.
3? And you
Because
have 1
wits is
armor.
2 and then armor is 1.
So it's 4.
You said wits is 2?
Yeah.
So it's the lowest
3.
of your wits and dexterity. So
Yeah, wits is the lowest.
Yep. So you'd have
3.
3, because your armor is always going to be 1 without anything special going on, right? All right, here we go.
Yeah.
1 success. So you take 1 lethal damage. I'll mark it for you. So if you look on your sheet and see what I'm doing, it says you have health, unless you have any, merits or anything that do anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what I do is I basically take the stuff that is not used and put a and sign in them, so that's seen, and then I put a lethal damage in your first box. Okay, so he basically swings at you with his axe, and it slices you down your left bicep, or actually probably your forearm, the way you're probably pointing the weapon at him. But it doesn't do any significant damage. Kind of jars you a little bit.
So that's that X in the first box?
Yep, the X in the first box is signifies a lethal damage. So it'd be X's are lethal damage. Typically in the system, X's are lethal. Ampersands or not ampersands, but asterisks are aggravated, and slashes are actually bashing. But
Okay.
there is no asterisk in this, so it's a pound.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what? I don't know why. Oh, never mind. I answered my own question. Okay.
Good. You're up. What do you do?
I'm gonna, fire off my rounds.
Okay, so you've got a Glock, right? Is it does it have a burst, or is it a single fire weapon? Let's look in your bio, right? So if we look in your bio, it says you have the stats here. So doesn't say what the rate of fire is. For pistols, I think it's
135. But I would just go with the safe bet of 1 round, because that just makes sense, really. You're not trying to murder this guy, right?
I'm trying to protect my life. So if I kill him, I kill him.
That's understandable. But gotta look at the weapon really quick. I'm looking through it as well.
Look it up real quick. I think, well, if I look at probably Barbara's got the same weapon, honestly.
Medium fire burst. Nope. Burst is short burst. 3 bullets at a single target at a +1 to the roll.
What's the negative to it then?
There is no negative. The negative is a single target. Yep.
Because there's yeah, it's fine.
Dexterity plus firearms. Minus the target's armor.
Well, he'll get his defense bonus too.
Yes, he'll get his melee defense too, which is gonna be nuts.
Let me see just real quick here. I don't know the system as well as on Song of Ice and Fire. Sorry.
I mean, do you get any bonuses for being point blank range right in front of the guy?
You actually
No,
get negatives.
you get negatives because he gets his melee defense, which is reasonable, right?
Yeah, you don't get anything for being point blank, unfortunately. So clip size 6.
17 plus.
Yeah, I think you just shoot one bullet.
What
really.
Glock does he have? Does he
I
have a
mean,
20?
it's just a light pistol, I think, right?
Yeah, light pistol.
Yeah. So I see no like. If I look at assault rifle, does it say?
If it is a 9mm or a Glock 26 or a Glock 22, obviously these are different things.
It's
So.
a 9mm.
Okay, 9mm will be. He's got 15 in his magazine plus 1 in the chamber.
Well, the book actually says 17 plus 1.
Well,
Your
book is
character fires 3 bullets. Okay, so at a single target with a +1. So you can do it. You can. So you can just shoot one time. There's 10 bullets. I guess it's just running out of bullets, right? Mostly.
I don't even think pistols are allowed to do auto fire. I'm pretty sure it's just 3, and even then, I don't think they can. Let me look. This is really finicky.
Yeah. So for most weapons, such as a pistol or rifle, that means one shot. So yeah, you just shoot one time. So you just roll. So what you're gonna roll is you. So if you're using a macro or not, doesn't matter really. What you'll do is you add your dexterity, your firearms, and your pistol damage, which is 2. So tell me what that number is.
Dexterity is 3.
Mm-hmm.
Firearms is 1.
Okay.
4.
And pistol damage is 2.
6.
So 6.
Minus.
His defense is going to be 1 and armor 1. So you're going to roll 4 dice. Now, you can spend willpower if you want to get 3 extra dice as well. So always keep that in mind.
Yes, I will do that in this scenario.
So if you just do 7d10.
So 7d10.
Yep, that sounds right.
Pistols explode on. No, they don't. They don't explode.
10, just a 10. Let me do your willpower here before I forget it. Okay, willpower lost.
So roll 1 more d10.
Yeah, one more.
Yep, one more. So you got 3 successes.
3.
So you end up shooting him, and you shoot him in the left shoulder, and he kind of like stumbles backwards, and in a scream just swings again at you. Jerry wants to read.
I gotta be quiet. Oh God.
Jerry.
All right. And so, okay, I gotta roll one more. All right, so
Come on.
he blasts you right in the side with the axe, and you feel sick to your stomach as he like yanks it out, and blood just starts pouring off the axe head.
What the hell is Asher doing?
He's, you don't know, you don't know what the hell's going on. So, little hint, you might want to step away and shoot.
Yeah.
I would fucking step back and like it's reel backwards as he pulls the axe back and just step back and fire.
Yeah. I'm gonna step back away through the door,
Okay.
away from him.
All right. So you step back, and so now you're looking through the he's right in the doorway, so he's not going to get any sort of cover. So basically, you're going to roll the same thing as you did last time, only.
What do I see in the hut?
You can do this. You can roll. You can risk your willpower again, I believe, or you could get the 9 again benefit.
For what? For the
risking willpower.
Yeah, but all right. So let me.
What
so
do I see?
Okay, in the hut, you don't see anything of interest really. It just looks like a fisherman's hut. You see a couple fishing poles, a cooler, a little space heater. Nothing important, and you've got other things to worry about right now anyway.
Well,
So-
there's no kerosene lamp burning in there or anything like that.
There's a space heater, but it looks like it has to be actually powered by some sort of propane, probably propane, right? Because there's no power outlet out here.
Okay.
So the thing I just showed is the difference between risking willpower
And
so you-
heroic effort.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I will. I've stepped away from him,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to go ahead. I'm trying to read what the benefits of this risk is.
Yeah, where's the negatives? I might not have added it.
It's risking. I think it's like burning in Ace of.
So it actually burns it, or
I'm pretty sure.
well,
Oh, so I would lose
risking
willpower.
sounds like you can lose it forever, but
Yeah.
Risks don't stack, but it's not.
I think I'll just use a regular willpower.
That's fine. So you'll roll one more die than you did last time.
Oh, is that how it works?
Well, so typically he would get his defense if he's engaged with you, and like he was last time. So if you move back and you shoot him, you get another die because he's not getting his defense.
Oh,
bonus.
is that what was giving him so much? Is because I was just so close to him?
Well, yeah, that's what he gave. He only had 2, right? He's gonna have armor like you are, and then he has his defense. So that's really all he had. He just had 2. His attacks are just his attacks, right? But
All right, yeah. So I
so you're gonna
stand
roll.
back and
You're gonna
I
roll 8
fire.
die.
8.
Mm-hmm. Roll one more d10.
Nice.
Nice, yep. So that's 4 degrees. So let's see what that does to old Jerry here. So you shoot him this time in the side, and he like kind of stumbles forward and falls to his knees and kind of waves the axe over his head and says, "Jerry wants to read." And he kind of slumps forward, and at that time Asher kind of like comes over and he's like, "What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?" So he appears unconscious, as far as you can tell.
Fucking shoot him again.
I tell Asher to run back towards the Jeep as I hold my side, and I back away further, and I fire at him again.
Okay. He is, just so you know, he appears to be unconscious in front of you.
Don't do it. You're gonna be convicted of murder. Murder's bad.
I fire at him again.
Okay.
Murder.
You shoot him in the back of the head, and the bullet.
No, I do not shoot him on the back of the head.
Where do you shoot him?
That's intentional. That's like walking up and putting a gun to someone's back of someone's head.
Where do you shoot him? Where do you
Don't
aim?
shoot him again. You're gonna be a murderer. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm not going to be a murderer. I have a huge axe
Rivers,
wound
stop.
in my side.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I fire at him again. If it hits him in the back of the head, I'm fine with that.
So you put one in his back, and he kind of like coughs out blood, and just lays there still. And Ash is like, "What did you do? What did you do?"
I pull my hand off of my side. Blood dripping off my hand into the snow, turning it red. What did I do?
He's like,
What's going on here?
He's like, I don't know what's going on. We need to call somebody. We need to call the police. The sheriff won't like this. The sheriff won't like this. And he goes and he basically, you see these two doors over here, right? These. He just kind of grabs them, and you see his hands awkwardly go around the door handles, and he almost effortlessly just yanks them open, and rushes inside, and heads to the nearest phone, and he starts, rotary dialing very slowly. He's like, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe this happened. Oh, this is gonna be horrible for the sheriff. So what are you
Sheriff.
doing?
I follow him inside and immediately look for anything I can use as a dressing, anything to kind of cover my wound.
Yeah, there's like hand towels and shit like that you could use.
Yeah. Okay. I get something like that and kind of stick it on my side and zip up my jacket around it to kind of hold it in place.
And he calls,
and he's like, Marge, there's somebody been out. There's somebody.
And he kind of like stops and he looks over at Lance, and he's like,
call you back.
And he hangs up the phone, and he stands up.
Why did you hang up?
Looks at Lance, and he's like,
this is gonna be bad for the sheriff. Why did you do that?
Mr. Howard, I don't know why you are worried about this being bad for the sheriff. A crazy man just tried killing us. We need to call the police.
And he reaches over and grabs the RJ-21 cable and yanks it out of the wall.
And he's like,
what the fuck?
This is gonna be bad for the sheriff.
What is going on?
And he grabs you by the front of your jacket, and he pulls you close to his malformed face, and he says,
this is gonna be bad for the sheriff.
And as he says that, there's a screen wipe, and the session ends.
What the fuck? God damn.